but like mutual, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know if you could say money, but it's nice to do it locally, I think, instead of,
this one.
yeah, email, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like Mennonite Mutuals specialize in serving churches.
Yes, our premiums went up, I think everyone says, so.
Everything's gone up.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, welcome to First Universalist. Whoops, I jumped the gun. Welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this pleasant. Are we in summer yet? I don't think so. Are we?
Today's the first day.
Today's the first day. Oh, the
Today's
longest day.
Like that, yeah.
Longest day of the year.
The longest day.
Yeah.
So I missed the summer solstice. I was going to do insects today, but I just realized this is the weekend for Father's Day and the weekend for Juneteenth. And Juneteenth and Father's Day very rarely occur at the same time, so that got my wheels turning, and we're going to kind of put Father's Day and Juneteenth together. I don't know how successful that'll be. I basically have more questions than answers, which is pretty much what I always have, is more questions than answers, but that's what we're going to do. All right, any announcements? Had more glitches today. The Facebook on my phone screwed up. I've been working on that for like 20 minutes, and it looks like it started, so we'll see whether that goes through. I was trying to preview the children's story, and that wouldn't play either, so once again, obstacles, and we surmount them or go around them or go under them, so we'll make it one way or the other. For the prelude, we're going to hear My Romance. Good song to start with. Our chalice lighting, motherless child, kind of with Father's Day. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Here may you find a warm greeting, a kind word, a gentle touch. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. Here may you find a community of support, a pulse of liberation, a vision of hope. Sometimes I feel I am almost gone. Here may you find a song to sing, a moment of silence, a hand to hold, even when you are a long way from home. May these walls give you shelter. May this community break through your loneliness, and may you feel the embrace of a larger spirit of life and love. Come, let us worship together. Words and thoughts by Amy Bowden Freeman. Our opening hymn is in the blue hymnal, number 66.
Which hymn?
Blue.
Oh.
When the summer sun is shining. When the summer sun is shining over golden land and sea, and the flowers in the hedgerow welcome butterfly and bee, then my open heart is glowing full of warmth for everyone, and I feel an inner beauty which reflects the summer sun. I've talked in the past few weeks, and actually this might be a good one for whenever we do the insect one, about hedgerows, butterflies, and bees. And as we know, hedgerows are disappearing, and insects and bees are disappearing. I suspect there might be a connection there. Let's see. Our affirmation, the complex feelings of Father's Day. Father's Day is an important time to check in with the complex feelings this day may evoke. The idea of the wise, patient, loving, all-knowing provider was never more useful than a television trope. At best, this ideal gives people a positive role in child-rearing to aspire to, but at worst, it casts patriarchy in a benevolent light as the natural order of things. And it also creates an impossible standard for new fathers to live up to that denies the messy, frustrating realities and constant failings that are part and parcel of parenthood. Sometimes it feels like Father's Day is more about enshrining a myth than it is about facing the realities of fatherhood that so often falls short. For some of us, the story of fatherhood is about love, acceptance, and guidance, but for others, it is a story of rejection, abuse, shame, or abandonment. For some, it is a story of nurturance, but for others, it is marked by frustration and resentment, a story of burdens and unrealized dreams. For some, fatherhood is the longing for children unborn or lost to death or estrangement. Many of us have no father story at all. Whatever your story and your feelings about having or not having, being or not being a father, we honor your unique experience this day, and I invite you to let your experience be what it is without measuring it against false ideals. While your Father's Day might be anything but a celebration, the force of the idea of father affects all of us in one way or another. Let us take a moment to go inward and experience the thoughts and feelings we have around the concept of father. If what you're feeling is love, I invite you to bask in that warmth and let it fill you. If what you're feeling is pain or rage, then hold it gently and listen as it wails its lament. If what you feel is sorrow, let yourself be slowly rocked by its waves. And if what you experience is the longing of child abandoned, then cradle that inner child and offer it the unconditional acceptance and love it yearns for. Blessed be. Words and thoughts by Ryan Urey. Almost a sermon in itself. Joys and concerns. We always light a candle for our absent friends, colleagues, church members. Hopefully Chaz and Paul are doing well. Margaret hopefully is doing well. I can't name everybody. Roberta, hopefully she's doing well. If anybody has an opportunity or any of their friends or family has an opportunity to let us know what the situation is, we would appreciate it. Our community grows stronger with contact, and as time passes and no contact is there, the community grows weaker. Anything local? Nobody died this week? Actually, a number of people have died in the last 2 weeks. Tara has 2 funerals this week, had 2 funerals last week. Part of that is the problem of shepherding 2 churches, because one dies in each church, and then you have to schedule. And she is very devoted. She is on call or is a very desired presider over a funeral, because she goes and sits with the family on the visitation night for 2 or 3 hours and gathers information, even the information that she did not know, and puts that into the eulogy. So her eulogies are heartfelt, thoughtful, and very inspiring. She's putting in a huge number of hours for somebody who's on half-time pay. And also putting on a lot of miles on her car, our car, which she is not getting mileage for. So we may have to talk about that in the future. All right. Noticing in the news last night, floods, fires, drought. It's all over, and it always is all over. I guess the news is the same every year. It doesn't matter where you are or who you are. There's a flood, somewhere there's a fire, somewhere there's a drought, somewhere there's a tornado, somebody's house has been destroyed. People have actually drowned in their cars in these floods. So it is a difficult situation for many people, and we are with them in spirit as much as we can do. Ukraine, which we have our sunflowers, situation is basically, I wouldn't say unchanged. The Ukrainians now are bombing oil depots in Moscow. So the Muscovites are now feeling there are waiting lines because there's a shortage of fuel in Russia. Who would have thought 4 years ago or 5 years ago that a little tiny country like the Ukraine could stand up to the Soviet Union or to Russia and actually put them back on their heels occasionally? There's still no one, everybody has too much pride, not everybody, the Russians have too much pride to say we want to have peace, but that time is approaching. Crimea, which Russia took even years and years ago, is being isolated. The Ukrainians are bombing with their drones the bridges that supply Crimea, which is an island basically attached to the Ukraine, but an island for Russia. And they are having difficulty making supplies there. So anytime, how would you say that war has a positive side? But if you could say that, there is a slight one here. Unfortunately, that is not the case for Israel. We have submitted a page-and-a-half peace plan with Iran, which basically puts us back to where we were before, maybe a little behind where we were before, because the Iranians have control over the Straits of Hormuz. But the Israelis have not agreed to that peace plan and have continued to bomb Lebanon. And the Iranians are saying, if you don't quit bombing Lebanon, then there is no peace plan. So everything is still up in the air. And no real progress there, and no advancing toward progress. I guess I'll light a candle for the reflecting pool. A $1.5 million job was given out, no contract, at $16 million. The paint is peeling off the floor of the pool. The water has turned green with algae, which science predicted, because if you put a warm reflective layer in the bottom, it creates more heat. More heat creates more algae. The attack from the White House is that it's sabotage. Somebody has come in and put algae in the pond. This is how far down the ridiculous trail we are going. They also arrested somebody, park police arrested somebody for picking up a piece of blue paint that had flaked off. I'm not sure what the charges are, but this person was actually arrested. This is what it says on Facebook. You have to take that with a grain of salt. But we are venturing into down the rabbit hole here, people. So anyway, hopefully we will get the reflecting pool, pond, lake, ocean. We'll get it straightened out in time for the 250th anniversary.
I wondered why we were using hydrogen peroxide. I
Hydrogen,
thought they used copper sulfate.
hydrogen peroxide does kill algae,
Yeah.
but the scientific thing is you would have brought in a tanker truck and plugged it into a recirculating pump. This is some guy who graduated from high school, has been appointed to a cabinet office by the White House, said, I heard that hydrogen peroxide works, so I want you 50 guys to go to Home Depot, get 50 gallons of hydrogen peroxide and pour it in. The percentage has to be like parts per million, not parts per billion. So pouring it in by the gallon is not going to work.
It sounds a lot like pseudoscience to me.
Yeah.
Pseudoscience.
It's not even
It's
not even pseudo, it's old wives' tale. It's something that somebody's brother told him at the meeting at the Legion, the American Legion, about how they keep their little pond in the backyard clean. They pour hydrogen peroxide in it. Yeah, copper sulfate is what a farmer would use for a pond. There's all kinds of scientific. If they would consult the agriculture, if they would consult the agriculture department, of course they fired all those people, so there's nobody left to consult. So, as I guess we would say, let them stew in their own juices. So, and
16 billion, did you say $16 billion?
16 million. And if you want to look up the guy who was he took care of the pools at Bedminster Golf. That's how Trump knows him. He's also a large contributor to Trump. That's the guy who got the job. See his picture on Facebook. He looks like your classic giant cigar, big heavy set guy. You know what the name of his company is? Greenwater. Greenwater is the name of his pool control company.
It sounds like a case for the Justice Department to prosecute for
Sounds
16
like
million and finding for recovery.
It sounds like a case for Mad Magazine. All right. And for those who think we're being too political, this is reality, folks. Reality is political. Do we have anything else? All right. One final candle, which we always light for any thoughts, prayers, hopes, desires, disappointments, anything that you are unable to share but would like to share. Please feel free. Okay, let's see. Father's Day, that's Happy Juneteenth. And here is our Father's Day. We're going to try and combine the two. Partially, what I'm looking at and what got me started was Father's Day in the black community is a difficult day. Why is there so much difficulty in the black community with fathers and children, or fathers and families? A lot of that goes back to slavery, and we will talk about that, what happened during slavery, and how that impacts what is happening today. So the children's stories, there's people have a question about, let's see if it'll play.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure Juneteenth got put on a lot of people's radars when the former President Trump was going to have a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma on Juneteenth. And he was kind of unaware of the conflict there, where there was a huge massacre in Tulsa in its history of the black community, and then Juneteenth, this holiday celebrating the emancipation and the end of slavery for all slaves in America. Trump kind of made it seem like, oh, people don't really know about this holiday. Now they do because of me. No, you didn't know about it either, Mr. Trump. And we all need to do the work, especially that we all white folk need to do the work to be more aware of this particular aspect of American history. Because let's remember that black history in America is American history. Okay, so Juneteenth. I first learned about this probably in the last 10 years or so when I was working at a church in New York City, the Collegiate Church, another awesome church in New York, and we began doing some Juneteenth celebrations. I learned what this day was. It's incredible. So the question remains, should churches celebrate Juneteenth? Well, I'm going to first say this. On this coming Sunday, when the two holidays collide, if you have to choose, let's just think which holiday might the ministry of Jesus lean into. Father's Day? Not that we should diminish the role of fathers. I'm an dad, come on, give me a beer or something. But Juneteenth is centered around liberation and justice. I mean, that's what this work of Jesus is all about. So, if you have to choose, I think you should choose Juneteenth. Now, second, if your church acknowledges, celebrates, does anything for the 4th of July, but you don't do anything for Juneteenth, that, I think, is worth reflecting. That is a moment of, wait a minute, I mean, are you going to sing the song Star Spangled Banner on one day, but you're not going to sing the Battle of the Republic and lift every voice and sing on the other day? I would say that maybe we should sing lift every voice on the 4th of July as well. Point being, we need to reflect on which holidays we include into our liturgical spaces and which ones we omit. Because sometimes that omission is accidental, but it still has an impact. And this coming Sunday is a unique opportunity to be very intentional. Maybe even name them. Today's Father's Day. It's also Juneteenth. Fathers, we're so grateful for the role you play in the lives of your families and society. But today we're going to center Juneteenth because this is a holiday that all of us need to remember and can continue to learn from. Both the mistakes of slavery, the ongoing mistakes of racism, and how we can be people who are proclaiming this emancipation and embodying it each and every day to the farthest reaches of our nation and our world. Beyond the world is what? The galaxy, the universe? I guess that's where the two Mars is next on the agenda for colonization. That's another conversation for another day. Anyway, what do you think? Should churches celebrate Father's Day, Juneteenth? One of them, neither of them, both of them? How do churches handle these kind of cultural holidays when they pop up? I'm not alone. I mean,
Should churches celebrate Juneteenth? Should churches celebrate Father's Day? We know they celebrate Father's Day. And we as Unitarian Universalists are going to celebrate Juneteenth. And as I said, what we're going to try and do is put the two together. So Here is a proclamation on this side for Juneteenth, the people of Texas, and I'll read that to you later. And here is a Father's Day picture on the other side. This picture is, let me leave that up there and let me talk about it, and I'll tell you when we get to it. Two very special holidays are intersecting this year, Juneteenth and Father's Day. Ironically, both of these days can be intertwined. When Father's Day coincides with Juneteenth, it becomes a celebration of freedom, family, and the strength of Black fatherhood. And we will talk about that connection. President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, which outlawed slavery in the Confederate States during the Civil War. Not slavery all over, only the slavery in the states that were rebelling against the United States. It was basically a club to encourage those states to give up and to make life difficult for those states. Lincoln's proclamation did not free the slaves everywhere in the United States. That was the 13th Amendment, passed by Congress on January 31st, 1865, abolished slavery in the United States. There is a really good movie about that, the struggle to, and I think I played that here once, the struggle to get that amendment passed. A very good movie if you're interested in seeing that. Juneteenth, observed on June 19th, commemorates the day in 1865 when enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas, were officially informed of their emancipation more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation and 6 months after the end of the Civil War. It symbolizes resilience, freedom, and the ongoing struggle for racial justice, honoring the achievements and contributions of African Americans throughout our history, even though at the present time in red states that history is being scrubbed, denied, covered up, taken down. Although Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, the Civil War, then raging, prevented it from being enacted in much of the American South until months or even years later. Emancipation Day, or Juneteenth, is the celebration to mark the eventual countrywide realization of that decree, June 19th, 1865, which is why it's on the 19th. When about 250,000 enslaved people were finally declared free in Texas, the last state in the U.S. to be reached by the Union Army, commanded by General Gordon Granger, meaningfully accompanied by Union Army troops in 2 transports of colored troops. Although Granger did not read out the Emancipation Proclamation, he did read out General Order Number 3, which began, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection therefore existing between them becomes that between employer and free laborer." That is what General Granger read out. 1 year later, the first anniversary of Juneteenth, or Jubilee Day, as it was then called, was celebrated in several places in Texas. The tradition soon took hold throughout the state. Communal barbecues, concerts, prayer services, parades, as well as baseball games, fishing, rodeos, all featured in the festivities. Some former enslaved people and their descendants living in far-flung parts of Texas made a pilgrimage to Galveston, and many dressed in their finest clothes, partly in response to the pre-1865 statewide laws that prevented enslaved people from dressing in any clothing not given to them by those who held them in slavery. Prior to 1865, black people were not allowed to wear any clothes not given to them by the slave master. Is this the genesis of black sartorial splendor? Black churches, if you've ever been to a black church on a Sunday or seen pictures, they are a sight to behold. Blacks, the African American community enjoys dressing to the nines. The fanciest hats, the best looking scarves, brooches, suits, just really fine looking, well dressed people. Is that because prior to the end of the Civil War, they were not allowed to wear anything but the rags that the master had given them? They are enjoying their freedom by showing it by what they are wearing. Black churches are a sight to behold on a Sunday morning for a plain dress brethren boy, who I actually wear a tie, and that's dressing up. Many of the photographs that survive from these early decades of the celebration, including sets from Houston and Corpus Christi, depict elegantly gowned groups in horse-drawn carriages, elaborately decorated with flowers down to the wheels. That's what we have here. These two are daughters of the first preacher, the first pastor that spoke at the first Jubilee, the first expression of joy for the first anniversary of Emancipation Day. These are his daughters, well-dressed, a beautiful carriage, a beautiful horse, and the carriage is decorated as nice as anything you'll see for the Rose Parade. Another set from Austin shows a group of older people, many of who would have been born into slavery, dressed up for the day, as well as a very well-posed six-piece band, and a group of men decked out in Civil War uniforms, perhaps reenacting the Union's entry into Galveston. I did not put all of those pictures in. Of course, violence toward black Americans did not magically evaporate with emancipation, and racial segregation and prejudice in some places made Juneteenth celebrations very difficult. Often forbidden from celebrating on public land, many gatherings had to be disparately held in remote rural areas or small church grounds, leading some black Texan communities to band together and buy land specifically for celebrating Juneteenth. The first such communally bought land was Houston's Emancipation Park, a 10-acre lot purchased in 1872 by the Colored People's Festival and Emancipation Park Association, led by Baptist minister and formerly enslaved Jack Yates. You can see the Reverend Yates. These are his daughters, his carriage. You can barely see in the background there on the porch of his house. Two of his daughters are in the decorated carriage. Father's Day, on the other hand, celebrates the role of fathers in nurturing, protecting, and guiding their children. When it coincides with Juneteenth, it highlights the unique challenges and triumphs of black fatherhood, reflecting both on historical struggles, family separations during slavery, and contemporary efforts to strengthen family bonds and community. Father's Day has been officially observed for a longer period of time. Juneteenth is basically a new tradition, though it is actually considered to be the longest running African American holiday. Juneteenth didn't become officially recognized as a national holiday until June 17, 2021. 2021 was the recognition in the United States of Juneteenth. Father's Day became official in 1972, which even that seems later than you would think. Father's Day was founded by Sonora Smart Dodd in 1910. Her father was a widower and Civil War veteran and raised his 6 children by himself. Dodd wanted to have him recognized for the job that he did, and she asked for help from government officials, businessmen, and others for support in making Father's Day a holiday. June 19th, 1910 was the date that it celebrated as the first observance, a holiday that affords people the opportunity to highlight the value of fathers and show their appreciation. You can't have Father's Day without kids, And some of the biggest questions are what is happening to the kids. We're veering off a little here for some background on Father's Day. There is an ongoing dispute whether children who are raised in single-parent homes have a greater disadvantage than children raised in two-parent homes. According to the Census Bureau, from 1960 and 2013, African American children who lived in single-parent homes more than doubled, from 22% to 55% of African American children are in single-parent homes. That was from 1960 to 2013. The same research showed that white children from single-parent homes tripled, but that was from 7% to 22%. So now 22% of white children are raised in single-parent homes. And interestingly enough, people think it's only single mothers, but there are almost as many, I think it's like 40-some% are single fathers raising children by themselves. But you never hear of those, mainly because of the differential, this is my understanding, the differential between salaries, income, and ability to get credit cards and everything else. Fathers have a more stable financial background than single mothers. When public officials, I need to skip that one as mentioned. As mentioned previously, both holidays will be observed on the same day, June 19th. Because of the nature of these holidays, it doesn't have to be either or, it can be both and. They can actually be seen to complement each other. This is because fathers are integral parts of families, and Juneteenth is a day that families convene to celebrate the emancipation from slavery. These fit together nicely hand in glove. The nexus of Father's Day and Juneteenth presents a unique opportunity to begin renewed dialogue around the concept of freedom and the importance of the father's role in helping ensure the freedom of families. It is no secret that when families with intact fathers tend to fare better economically and even emotionally if the father is fulfilling his role. When looked at in this light, fathers are an important ingredient in the community that they can help ensure their families, which are the backbones of communities, are high functioning. Certainly, we can envision a community with a majority of families with responsible families. Today it is said that over 70% of all African American children are being raised in single-parent, female-headed households. 70% of African American children. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, from data from 2010, 73% of African American children are born out of wedlock. It is relatively easy to see how the lack of responsible fathers is reflected in community dysfunction. The schism between men and women, fratricide, black-on-black crime are just a few of the realities that reflect this situation. We do not have an established cause and effect yet. But one thing we're going to look at as a possible link in this chain of parenting lapses is the damage slavery did to black families. This is pretty hard to listen to, so hard that many red states are outlawing awareness of the real history of American slavery. During the era of chattel slavery in Americas, white slave owners implemented brutal and calculated strategies to dehumanize African Americans and maintain absolute control over their lives. One of the most insidious methods was the deliberate prevention of emotional bonds between enslaved men and their children, particularly male offspring. This strategy served dual purpose. It stripped enslaved men of their humanity and protected the slave owners from potential rebellion or resistance. By severing these familial ties, slave owners ensured that enslaved men could not form attachments that might inspire them to protect their children from the horrors of rape, beatings, or other forms of brutalization. This article explores how these practices were enacted with a focus on the use of enslaved men as breeding studs and the enduring impact on black families. The systematic destruction of emotional bonds. They were denied the opportunity to form relationships, They used a range of tactics, including forced separation. Enslaved families were frequently torn apart through sales or relocations. Fathers were sold to distant plantations, ensuring they had no contact with their children. The physical separation made it impossible for men to develop emotional ties with their offspring. Denial of paternity. Enslaved men were rarely acknowledged as fathers in any formal or social sense. Slave owners often refused to document or even recognize familial relationships, reducing enslaved men to mere laborers rather than farmers, husbands, or community members. And then you have the breeding stable strategy. One particularly heinous practice was the use of enslaved men as breeding studs to produce more slaves for profit. Even in those days, people knew about breeding for improvement. You took the best bull and bred it to the best cow or all the cows and hoped that the offspring would be better calves. You took the best cow and bred it to the best bull, hoping for better calves. They used the same principle with black slaves. A big, tall, strong slave who followed orders was given the job of creating children among all the black slave women. Their partners, the people, the men in the camp, they did not count, they were not allowed. They used an artificial breeding program just like you would with dogs or cows or horses. They maintained a select group of tall, strong, muscular enslaved men chosen for their physical attributes to impregnate enslaved women. This practice was especially prevalent on large plantations where the demand for labor was high and slave owners relied on natural increase, quote unquote, to grow their enslaved populations. Slaves were worth anywhere from $500 to $1,000. That was a huge amount of money in those days. These men were forced to impregnate dozens, sometimes hundreds of women without consent or knowledge of the resulting offspring. The children born from these forced unions were typically separated from their fathers at birth, ensuring that no emotional bond could form. The deliberate anonymity served multiple purposes. Slave owners used violence to suppress any attempt at familiar bonding. Enslaved men who showed affection or protectiveness toward their children risked severe punishment, as such behavior was seen as a threat to the slave owner's authority. The fear of witnessing their children being raped, beaten, or killed in front of them was a powerful deterrent against forming emotional connections. By preventing these bonds, slave owners ensured enslaved men would not have the emotional incentive to rebel or protect their children, making it easier to perpetrate acts of violence, including sexual assault, against enslaved women and children without fear of retaliation. Do you think that has any effect, what happened in the 1860s, on the mentality that we are experiencing today? Does this explain the absence of black fathers today? Maybe if you believe in a perpetual cycle that started with slavery and the missing father figure, which meant successive generations of black families were missing a vital parental figure. When slavery was ended, fathers did not know who their kids were, kids did not know who their fathers were. Their socialization, their communities progressed with mothers and kids and no fathers. Those children grew up without a father figure, without a father identity, without a father to learn how to be a father from. Hence, those children, this is just a supposition, did not learn how to be good fathers because they had no role model. When they grew up and they fathered children, they had no pattern to follow to be a good father, and that cycle continues. If there's no pattern of good father to follow, then no one learns how to be a good father. That's just my understanding. So when we look at our current communities, we can see that we have gained an official freedom in the form of freedom from slavery, but we are now suffering from another kind of bondage. That is the breakdown of the family unit and the attendant lack of freedom that it entails. In observing the link between Juneteenth and Father's Day, we can note that a main ingredient in community healing would be that of reinforcing the understanding of the role that fathers play in helping to offset family and community dysfunction. Juneteenth and Father's Day are intimately connected for the Black population. The value of fatherhood is not an issue. The ability of fathers to be fathers is. For all families, single mothers are more prevalent than ever. That was the thought that I came to. And maybe we are seeing a cycle that continues and continues and continues. The problems in the African American communities, black on black crime, all the problems that we see, that stems directly from the period of slavery when fathers were not permitted to be fathers, when mothers were not permitted to know the fathers and to hold the fathers as a family unit, when family integrity was stripped from these families, and that has continued on to this day. That is just a possibility that I want people to think about. All right, I've got a little more, but we're running out of time. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, and we'll probably will in the future, is we think the Constitution and the laws of our land protect us, but we have to think a little bit about the illusion of what that is. Does the Constitution have any power in itself to enforce the constitutional mandates? Does the Declaration of Independence have any force? Does the executive branch have any force? The one example would be during the school integration in the 60s. The Marshal Service were sent to southern states to enforce integration. And we've seen the Army called out into the streets in the last few years. That is through executive force, but it is at the whim of the executive. Does the court have any ability to enforce their mandates? If the Supreme Court says you are to do something or not to do something, can they actually make anybody do anything? They can't. So we are at the precipice. This is something we'll talk about in the future. We are at the edge of finding out how much what we have, what we define as our freedoms depends on how much we can defend our freedoms. We cannot depend on someone else doing it for us. Okay, comments or questions?
What is the source of your photograph?
That is, I looked up online on Facebook, well actually no, on Google.
Is that an archive?
Yeah, it's a massive, and there's a whole article on this with multiple photographs of blacks, as I quoted in the article that I was reading from. Bands, many horses and carriages decorated. This is all from the late 1800s and early 1900s. This picture was from 1910, and particularly in Texas, but from Texas, the Jubilee Day, the Juneteenth spread over the country till now it's separated, or is celebrated in most black communities, and now actually it is now a federal holiday, which I wouldn't be surprised to see that dropped the way things are going now. And I'm sure there are some states where it is not observed. In fact, in Ohio, it is a federal holiday, but it is not a state holiday. The state offices still work as they were, as their standard to be, because it's not a state holiday. So, but if you look on Google for Juneteenth, and if you ask the question Juneteenth as a separation or Juneteenth as a combination with Father's Day, that's where I put that in, and that's where a lot of this showed up. There's tons more information than what I gave you. I tried to winnow out the extraneous stuff. Very, very interesting. And particularly, people mentioned, they gave the history of slavery, which is where I pulled that history from. But I did not find anybody, I'm sure somebody has probably done it, but I would be interested to know whether that is actually a factual supposition that the way African Americans were treated during slavery is cycled on and on and on. There has to be a reason why black communities are in the problem, have the problems they have. And there is a solution for it. We just haven't devoted the correct amount of intellectual attempts and financial attempts to finding out what it is. We know it's not just giving people money, but there is training that can be done and education that can be done. With browbeating and denigrating and telling people you're terrible because you're not a father figure, that's not going to work. Yes.
A number of doctoral theses as well as dissertations in sociology and anthropology. It would be interesting to examine the literature on that. that very topic.
And I usually go to Psychology Today, the magazine. There's usually a wealth of information on this kind of stuff. I didn't get that far. I was overwhelmed by the information that I found just on Google that I presented to you. So, but if any, yeah.
Isn't more money given to women raising children than fathers and mothers in the family? They don't get as much welfare, do they?
Fathers and mothers don't know, because fathers and mothers together usually have an income that disqualifies them for receiving federal money. The interesting thing
That
is,
would lead the men from moving to the family.
and that is part of the thing, if a man moves in and contributes, then they lose money. And you'll find that in many, if somebody gets a job, they're gonna lose their benefits. They're gonna lose their medical benefits, they're gonna lose their food stamps. That's why a guaranteed minimum wage has been tried before, and it's been successful where people have tried it. And I told you about the supplying of housing for homeless people. You don't apply any strings to it, you just give them an apartment, the electricity paid, the heating paid, and a cleaning service to come in. Not everybody, but a large number of those people manage to get a job, manage to get clean and off of drugs. It's giving them a stable place to be. So many cases I see on Facebook, homeless or veterans or homeless people have a pet, a dog, that is not accepted into a shelter. And they will not go to a shelter without their pet. Their dog is their family. So they stay on the street with that dog, trying to maintain that family status. Surely there is a way that we can create shelters that will allow pets. None of these things are easy. Solving any of these social problems is not easy, and maybe there is no solution. We can certainly do a better job than what we're doing, and the answer is not to outlaw homelessness. So take the park benches down so the homeless people don't clutter up Broadway, and close the bridge. They were living under the bridge in Greenville, if you remember that, and the police went down and cleared them out from there. All you're doing is moving your problem from one place to another. You're just dumping your problem in somebody else's yard. That's not a responsible way to look for a solution. Once again, what we're looking for is rational, kind, compassionate, and we know there's going to be failures. We know we're not going to succeed in every attempt. That is no reason not to try. Okay, no, I really don't know too much. Anything else? All right. Where are we? For the offering, we are going to hear, if I can find my paper. Life is the sweetest gift. If you have something to contribute, please do. Closing hymn is 219, "Oh Hear My People." people, hear me well. I have no need for sacrifice, but mercy. Loving kindness shall alone for life and good suffice. That was written in the early 1800s, 1820 to 1770, or 1811, 1770 to 1811. Pretty amazing. The concept and the words are still as relevant today as they were over 100 years ago. All right, extinguishing the chalice. We shall overcome. When we can truly celebrate the diversity of contributions and talents offered by all people, we shall overcome hatred and prejudice and oppression. When we can truly extend our hands to one another in loving acceptance, we shall overcome the past that haunts us now. Living in peace and freedom, we shall overcome the wrongs that have happened and the debts left unpaid. Let us join together in that commitment to overcome. Let us say together, Amen. By John Lou Johnstone. All right, postlude, Faith of Our Fathers, very appropriate. That ends our service at New Madison. Hopefully you have a good Father's Day with no strife or contention at the table, no political arguments or anything like that. It happens at holidays occasionally. Our final picture is, of course, a horse. My father did not tell me how to live. He lived and let me watch him do it. And I guess I could go back to... There's another picture of a really nice looking horse. There are 2 or 3 pictures, and I picked this one because the house was there, but the horse's ears, you notice, he's not too happy because his ears are back. And the other pictures, his ears were forward. He was looking like a posed picture horse, but the background was not as good. So I went with the house and the other guy, and you just have to take the horse as having a personality. Sometimes they're agreeable, sometimes they're not agreeable. All right, coffee and donuts and leftover cake from last week. Have a good week. Have a good Father's Day. Probably insects next week unless something else monumental happens. We'll leave our last candle for those people who are struggling or have needs that they cannot voice, and for our absent members.
You got a big day, Brian Kenny? Okay. Oh, we have Louisiana French cake in here, I see.
Are you familiar with this Katie, Taylor Wenger? Well, anyway, anyway, she will be running against Jonathan Newman in our district right here. So, I spread the word about her and support her. Pretty sure I could be, so I'm looking at one for a whole time, but did get on her website and it's pretty good. So she could be, Jonathan's a Baptist minister, and he, I was so concerned, he still on the rule of Gary, the most conservative, theatrical, house, from Sandusky, Fremont, Victory, Ohio. I know that in town, so I was just alone. Like presidents.
Katie's a lot of work on issues in the library. She had a 2-hour meeting read session.
That must have been where Glenn met her. That might have been the library or chair.
Because I don't know where to the library. She said there's not really
It looked like on the website that she'd been on the website a while.
and she's doing the library thing all over the district. She does it in Miami County.
So someday she can overcome that.
Odds are against it, but it's a building. As we all look at it, right? Just trying to let people know that there are Democrats that are able to vote for it, to vote in this time.
All the gerrymandering we've been for the last 20 years.
You put it in the end anyway, so it doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
I didn't realize it was somebody at Juneteenth and I thought, oh, I ran in, I forgot to check. I ran back in, wrote a statement from last week's. Last week's one too. I don't know what it is. We don't look at anything else, you know.
I've seen it, I haven't got changed, this is how we have 30 days,
Changing numbers, but the check was written out for like $125.
And that's what they should, go by.
Oh, yeah.
And they cashed it for $425. Just some of the sweethearts that I work with.
Well, we say no mathematics, it's greater than, less than. That's a hard concept for a lot of children.
They are the most many people I've met. That's this guy said, I don't my daughter. I would do. My daughter saw the check reading.
And she thought she could do a favor for Dash, right?
She thought she was trying to get some money. I said, well, how does she have to go to the cost of checks and how does she get the ability to get money out of her picture?
I don't know.
Wouldn't you know the before was one in cash?
Yes. It's just,
I was talking with her, she said they had a check fraud. And of course, her check account did third. And every day someone has to do more. They approve the checks to pay that day. So we got a new kid looking at that. And he was very good to look at it. You're supposed to bring him up and look out, you know, on the screen, or he didn't do that. And they, somebody that put a check for $30,000 or check. I don't know how they ever take out all that, because you know, bank, if you don't renew the process, or then you
same one.
Yeah.
So,
That's your problem.
is that help check for all?
On the basis of that, I took out my account from Fifth Third, and moved to credit union. She said, I'll be back for you.
That's the problem with debit card. So somebody gets a debit card information, they can get your, credit card. They don't always, I can test the credit card, they say, no, that's like, it's a valid charge, they say, well, it's not a valid charge. So it's all true, it's there, so it's not guaranteed.
But credit card is only if you accept that valid order. Well, I call a check.
Yes, it's a tax, there's no charge, and I appreciate it when you do that. I have to say, when I started on that, somebody got hold of it, the store called and said, if you buy a $300 suit in California, I said, no. They said, we were using a card with somebody's house, so then I had to go through the change.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, so I'm learning to try and keep everything on a holiday in my card. Nobody knows the information. They're using to charge it online. They're using that they can pay your water bill, your light bill, your electric bill. So it's on holiday, nobody else check this. So now some of these students start buying just to be part of the
We do this with PayPal too, you know, you plan a credit card with PayPal, they can't get. You use that because PayPal pays it and then you have to do it. They want to say PayPal for this person.
And PayPal was verified in, and I'm in a place where I can get the text, once I can get some other stuff, that won't go through, because I can verify. So that's what I'm doing, that's supposed to do.
Somebody took the notice, and, it was a weather notice. And they checked with me because they look at your past things, you know, I mean, I said, I don't know anything, so. So that was pretty appreciative.
That's why when they call and ask, like, if your car, doing the same type of work, when she makes a purchase, sometimes she buys stuff, which I hope she is, so I'll prove that. But let's check, I appreciate it. You always check, every month, they get $5 for the car, they newspaper, so I can put their news, they investigate the book. Every month it says you got $1 international charge for that. That's $10 instead of the
Is that credit card company converted for you or just buying that service?
That's Guardian's fees and paying you go overseas and they charge you 3% or some percentage.
Let's use international free.
The Guardian's charging American is their law is charging overseas. Whatever, I'm seeing that over the days.
It's always like tricky because you know, you travel over there and you buy something in emergency, or should I put that in, local currency, or should I get $100? Well, if you say, you tendency, they'll put it in dollars. Well, then they give you a horrible conversion.
Yes.
Whereas if you use a credit card or whatever, and you say, no, put it in your currency. Credit card companies, every midnight, they convert that at the current rate, so you don't get that quick.
There's some
But it seems like it's the other way around.
some credit card companies don't charge overseas tax. Like some credit cards are charging 3%, and you can charge extra 3%, and you can charge overseas. And some don't have a
Oh,
international charge.
They don't have any international